goodness. Big move Monday. Look out. A way to end the tournament.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Quad Pod, sponsored by Poseidon Strength and Adidas Wrestling. Make sure you use QP25 on Adidas Wrestling and Quad Pod on Poseidon Strength. We've got a great show today. We're going to get into the, let's just call it dumpster fire that has been burning hot at Penn State with all of the headlines for the last, what is it, like month it feels like? It's been pretty wild. It's probably only been like a couple weeks, but it's been pretty hot and heavy, to be completely honest. But before we do any of that, we're going to do a quick weigh-in. So first things first is good news for Ben Askren. Ben gets his double lung transplant. His wife gave another update just the other day. So great to see that Ben is getting the help he needed. It was pretty awesome that even though him and Jake Paul have had their whatever, that Jake Paul was like, you know, why aren't more people doing things? I'm going to step up and I'm going to do something. And, you know, I think maybe he donated money or something, right, in that regard. But awesome news. Glad to see that Ben is getting the medical care that he needs, and hopefully he'll be back on his feet pretty soon. Austin, over to you.
Yeah, it was just pretty much confirmed the last few weeks here. American University will host the 2026 EIWAs. And that'll be really, really fun. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought you were setting me up for a question, Claunch.
No. So I'm a big Borelli fan and an American.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're doing awesome down there. So they're
all the Borellis.
Going to be a fun time down there. It was between American and Drexel, and Drexel would have been nice just because Ivies are at Penn and you could really walk from the other one the next day, which would have been a fun weekend of wrestling. But American, they are hosting EIWAs, and their new facility is going to be finishing up in a month or two here. Got to get down there, take some cool video. It's got a brand new wrestling room, 3 mats, some bikes, new locker room. I think there's volleyball and, you know, I think basketball, some other sports in there too. Whole new facility. And I was geeking out a little bit reading about the article. It's actually the first net zero building, athletic center in the nation. And it's one of 500 commercial buildings in the world that's net zero. So really sustainable. Yeah, it's sustainable, makes its own energy, doesn't give a lot off, Robbie. There you go. So yeah, really good for the environment too. So, you know,
Does it have windows?
I think it has a few, unlike some other facilities that were just built, right? But yeah, it looks like a nice place. And again, they're going to move in December here, so nice little Christmas gift to American.
Yeah, the dungeon look doesn't work for American.
Nope.
Have to hit me up when you come down here. Maybe we can do a swing through Fairfax too and hit Mason up.
Yeah, they got a nice spot too.
Get a little content on site. Kevin, over to you.
I just wanted to shout out Jacoby Smith, who got a submission this past weekend. He's been kicking ass in the UFC. It's funny, like I think it was Willie's tweet that was like, "Oh, Jacoby's fighting coming up soon," and I was just sitting there eating dinner with my in-laws and my wife, and I was like, Jacoby Smith looks like he's made of marble, just solid marble. And I can imagine, like, now he's just fighting people in cages, and like nobody stands a chance. So,
and he's undefeated still. I think he's what, 11 or 12-0 now.
I think 11 or 12-0, and just walking through people. And I think Kyle Crutchmer was helping to train him or getting ready, or was there at least as part of that. So shout out to
him and Pitch, and Jacoby Smith have been training together, I think, since they left Oklahoma State.
It's quite the trio there.
Yeah.
I actually had a chance to see those guys train when they were with DC in California. I had a California trip years ago, and they were training out there in California at AKA, and it was really cool to kind of pop in and see them train and do some interviews with those guys. It was pretty awesome. They go hard, man. They go super hard. Like I said, this was years ago, and they're still doing really, really well. So hopefully they continue to do really well too. So great shout out there. Robbie, on to you. What is your weigh-in?
I kind of have a somber one. It's a tough day for the Virginia wrestling community, University of Virginia and the state. Hudson Stewart, former UVA wrestler, finished up his last year at Bellarmine, is no longer with us. Known Hudson for a long time. His dad's a great coach. 4 brothers were all college wrestlers. It's a great family. It's a tough loss. You know, great guy, gone too soon. And, you know, just thoughts and prayers with them, with the UVA program, with the Brookville community in Lynchburg, and with Bellarmine, with his new team.
Yeah, it's always really tough to get news like that. I mean, the only thing that I'll ever say is talk to people, right? Ask people how they're doing. That is like the number one thing. Check in with your friends. So yeah, that there's really no follow up to that. So let's jump into the Penn State news. And I want to start with kind of like the umbrella of it, right? There's so much going on in the wrestling world, and I think I said this before. I don't know if I said it on the show or not. I honestly had forgotten how many nameless and faceless wrestling accounts there were.
Mhm.
And I feel like this off season, with everything that has gone on, they've just like spawned. And if there's bad news to report, which there has been a ton of it, and it's been a ton of it about Penn State, they are like hound dogs with a bone right now, and it's pretty insane. Because everybody wants to jump to pointing fingers and saying, we knew there was something, we knew this, we knew that, and everybody wants to feel vindicated, and like their hatred is now in some way correct. And it's just crazy to me that anyone would want to jump onto somebody's back when they're down in any stretch of the imagination, right? I don't care if it's, Aaron Brooks or Beau or Starocci or Kyle. Like you you just you can't talk out of one side of your mouth and say you want wrestling to grow and you want everything good to happen in wrestling, but then as soon as there is bad news for a certain team, you want to go ape shit and you want to amplify it more than you amplify a guy winning a gold medal. Like that's the crazy part for me is the amount of people that have wanted to just like jump all over these terrible things and feel like and pound their chest and say I told you so. Um, that's the crazy thing for me. And overall, looking at Penn State, it has not been good, right? There was the Kyle Snyder stuff, and we spoke about that. Robbie, you spoke about it really well and saying it is just not a good look for him to be escorted out of Final X the opposite way, not do interviews. I think we all agreed as well that it has not been a good look for him to not really put out a statement in any sort of way, or for USA Wrestling to not put out a statement in any sort of way, or for Nittany Lion to not put out a statement in any sort of way. Um, and then you move on from that to the things that happen with Braden Davis, and then you've got the Starocci Beau stuff, and now you got the Aaron Brooks stuff, right? So before we like get into each one of these subtopics, what are your guys' thoughts on Penn State, how they've handled all of these things, and how it looks for them to continue their we don't engage in the media scrum type outlook on things. And Robbie, I'm going to go to you first.
It's kind of biting him in the ass right now.
Yeah.
It'd be nice for them to have some good publicity. And I think from a public relations standpoint, they have done an awful job handling all of this. The only statement that's been put out on the Penn State side is about Braden Davis, just that they acknowledged his arrest and
Mm-hmm.
that he was entering a rehab program or something of that sort. That's the only thing that's been said. And over the last 2 months, we've had multiple arrests of people within the program or affiliated with the RTC, um, positive doping test, and all these allegations against Starocci. You would think that at some point they'd want to get ahead of something or make any sort of a statement acknowledging anything, but it's just radio silence. And that's their go-to, but it doesn't seem like the right approach in this situation.
Yeah. Austin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fans of the sport that just kind of want to see Penn State go down, and what better excuse for things like this? They just been at the top forever, and we're always talking like, how are they so good? What are they doing different than everyone else that they just keep winning? They keep doing this, and then it's like, oh, steroid allegation. Oh, okay, maybe that's why. And then there's all this other stuff going on. You mentioned it's like, oh, maybe they're not as good as goody two shoes, or they're not as positive as they lead on to be. Maybe maybe there's a bit of hypocrisy in there, which is what people may be thinking. Obviously that's probably not our thoughts here, but just talking for what some of the fans are saying, it's like it's you want to see them go down, and this
Fans in quotes.
yeah, fans in quotes, yeah, and it's an ugly situation. It's weird, and you got to wonder, is this part of the end that we're starting to see? They were at the top forever, and things start crumbling here and there, and then I don't know. Well, only time's going to tell, but we'll see.
Yeah, Kevin.
It's like the gif of like the room's on fire and the little like bird or whatever sitting there like, this is fine, it's okay. I don't know, man. It's just,
Is that Kale or Cody or in this analogy?
dude, I don't. The only other thing I can think of is like maybe they were getting ready to make a statement, and then the next bad thing happened, and they were like, "Ah, shit! Well, now we got to rewrite it." And then that happened a couple more times. I don't know, man. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, and it's tough because at some level, if we're gonna break it down granularly, like it would almost take up too much time to do it. But it's like the let's say the Brooks thing, for example, like those coaches probably weren't with him at the store, right? Whatever the circumstances are around that, like there's only so much you can do to avoid that from happening. I also doubt they were with Snyder that night. So there's only so much you can do.
They weren't on the video
to avoid that happening, So like certainly there's stuff that it sounds like and even with Braden Davis, like maybe you try to help him as a coach, but like this is not the first kid that we've seen in college wrestling do something drunkenly and stupid, right? I mean, shit, Jordan Williams, right? Didn't that just happen too?
For the second time.
Yeah. So
at
like these are
school. Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to be like this is a Penn State issue at all levels of college wrestling or college sports in general. Like this is you're dealing with 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids making stupid choices. And sometimes when they're older and RTCs too. But ultimately it's a really bad sequence of events. It's not great. I mean, they've been pretty consistent. Whether they're winning or losing, they're not going to get in front of a microphone. It'd be one thing if they were winning a bunch and they were like throwing it in your face. They've been winning a bunch and they still don't get in front of a microphone.
In fairness, Starocci does, but I haven't heard from him either.
The thing about that, which is funny, and Kevin, we were together at NCAAs in Kansas City when Kale had told one of the other Intermat girls and I think Earl, like, hey, you can grab any one of my guys and do an interview with them at any point, right? So like it's weird in that regard where we're always told to approach them kind of like you would approach like a baby deer, right? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like you don't frighten it, you know what I mean? Because don't make any sudden movements, right? Like that kind of a thing. But then when Kale says, grab any one of my guys at any point, you're like, okay, well that's kind of the antithesis of what I was thinking, because every year when I try to get an interview, a preseason interview of one of your guys, I'm told that the window has closed, but I never knew that there even was a window. Right. And then when we try to see what your schedule is, you guys have some rule, and maybe it's just an administrative rule that your schedules and your roster don't come out until a week or two before your competition. So there's no real set concrete fact of what your schedule looks like or what your roster looks like. So getting a hang on doing preseason stuff, yeah, I'm sure like we know, to a certain extent, we've got a good handle on it, but like it's another thing to fully see who's on your roster for that year. It's another thing to fully see what your schedule looks like. So I don't understand why the secrecy in that regard, but Robbie, as you said, like the hands-off approach or the we're not making any statements approach, it just doesn't compute for me. And I try to consume other wrestling media. I try to, I watch Willie because him and I are close, obviously, and we talk about some of the same things. And if I can give him some of the things that I'm getting from people I'm talking to, I try to give him that, and vice versa. I do not talk to the guys at Flow anymore. If I get a text message at some point, then I would. It's not like it's like a I want to fight you kind of a thing, but I don't talk to any of those guys. And mind you, most of those guys weren't even there when I was there. For the most part, or at least weren't part of the wrestling team when I was. I was on to other websites by the time a lot of those guys got in, so I didn't really have meetings or anything else with them. But one of the things, and I watched the beginning of their show today, and they said with their hands-off approach, they feel like they almost don't know how to do the crisis management portion of it. And I don't necessarily agree, because full transparency, I've applied for communications jobs at universities in the past, and you have crisis communications at all universities. So the coaches might not know how to respond to this, and they shouldn't, because it's not their job to know how to respond to this. But the communications departments do, and especially one at Penn State, who, let's face it, you have
They've gone through the
experienced one.
ringer. Yeah.
yes, like there's been some things that have gone down at Penn State where you've needed some crisis management and communications. So even though as a wrestling team, you focus on the things you can control, right? You guys, Penn State does Bible study together, they practice together, they train together, all those things, right? But you should be able to lean on your communications department and put together something that says something of the sort. Because and I think we can jump to Aaron Brooks, because when the Brooks stuff happened, it came out, and like an hour later, Brooks had already had a statement written himself, right? And Bosch said that on their show this morning that he wrote the statement. He did the graphic, at least. I actually know that John Brooks, Aaron's dad, was part of doing the statement. I talked to John. He sent me their statement before Aaron put it out. So I had asked him, is this something Aaron is going to put out? Is this something that you would like for us as journalists to put out and say, this is Aaron's response? And he's like, Aaron's going to be putting this out, but we wanted to, get ahead of it and let everybody know this is what his statement was. I'll say the ugly part of this for Aaron is the fact that it's his second time where people are left to speculate, and say you did something on accident again, or there's another explanation for a banned substance being in your body or whatever else. Now it did come out that it was DHEA. And I will say there is DHEA in other supplements. There are supplements that do add that in. So I don't know. I know people said that's what was the failed test. I don't know if it was just like taking the capsules or whatever else, or if it was mixed into some sort of supplement. Because that's where I can see it being an accident, is if it was in another supplement. I can't see it being an accident if it was just DHEA capsules, because DHEA is a banned substance for not just athletes in WADA testing, but also NCAA athletes. So I can't give you the benefit of the doubt in that regard, because you've been in both testing pools for a very long time, right? So we can't really give the benefit of the doubt for that. And say that it was an accident in that regard if you were just taking pure DHEA. Obviously, there are a number of different reasons for taking that. I'm not a scientist. I don't need to give you the things that I read on what it is, and I've literally never taken it. So I have no idea how it feels to take it or what it does for you. Or, I mean, just reading it says it gives you energy, and there's some different things that it does. But that's what he popped for. However, like I said, if it was an honest mistake, he went and bought something at Wegmans, it had it in it, and that was the issue, then okay. I still think that he deserves some sort of punishment because with talking to as many athletes as I've talked to in my lifetime, and also with being a college athlete, you know the things you can and can't take. You know that there is drug testing. You know the things you don't just go to you can't just you're a high level athlete. You can't just go to the store and take whatever. It just doesn't work that way. You're not I'm sorry, as much as we try to pretend like these athletes are normal people, you're not a normal person. You cannot just have whatever you want to have. So in that regard, yeah, I do think that there has to be some sort of punishment. Do I think that it should be like a 2-year suspension? That really depends on what they find with the investigation. And when I spoke to, the Brooks camp, it was intent has to play into this. And I think it does. If they come out and, they're like, this was an accident and the investigation finds that it truly was an accident, I think it's like a 6-month. I think Nomad put out a tweet of like, here's everybody that popped for DHA. Here's the varying degrees of punishments. And it spanned from 2 years to I think 4 months was in the list of different people that had popped for it. So I do think that there should be some sort of punishment because this, like I said, this is the second time. But it really, intent does have go a long way. On top of that, not just intent, but you have to have some sort of, I guess, awareness of what you're doing and what you're putting in your body. I obviously spoke to him. June 11th is when that interview came out with me and Aaron, and he spoke about being away from the mat. And I also asked, before it came out that it was the HEA, I asked, did Aaron know what he took? At least did he know? I asked, does he know what he popped for? Is what I asked. And he said he figured it out afterwards, right? Like after he had taken it, he figured it out, but it was already too late. He'd already taken the test and everything else. So like he figured it out that he had made a mistake and that had happened. So that was the case. That's what I asked. And those are the things that I was given. So again, I have, all my bias cards on the table. Love the kid. I've known him since he was like 14 or 15, and intent has to go into it. Right. But I also feel like you have to be accountable for the things that you do, and whether you meant to take it or you didn't mean to take it or whatever else. I don't, I think that plays into it certainly, but I do also think that just taking something and not having any regard for what the consequences could be if you, pop for it. I think no matter who it is, you should pay the consequences for that. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the Aaron Brooks testing?
It's funny because you guys remember Josh Cribbs?
Yeah.
And he was like awesome wide receiver for the Browns, and he just kept getting popped for weed.
Yep.
And eventually they were just like, stop coming back. Like, you're just going to fail it again,
And then they made it legal to smoke weed in the NFL. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
just like the gambling, just like gambling that they're now doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, if anyone here hasn't seen Josh Cribbs highlights, go watch him because that dude was awesome.
He was awesome.
I had him on my fantasy team, which was great until he was suspended.
Yeah, exactly. You just win week after week because he would have like 7 catches for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. But like my point is, you know what? Josh Cribbs suffered the ultimate punishment, which is he basically lost his career, and by the time he was like back in the league, it was kind of washed and it was over with, It sucks for Brooks, and I'm bummed because like I think he's an awesome wrestler and fun to watch, but like he's going to be punished, and however long that time is, it's going to suck. And what's going to suck for him more is not being able to train and be on the mats and compete and do all the things that like you want to do to begin with. DHEA or whatever. Like I'm not a person who's done any of that stuff either, right? I think like whey protein is about as wild and aggressive as I've ever gotten with trying to add some muscle.
I can tell.
But yeah, right. But ultimately, I think that, hey, everybody's trying to get an edge. I think that it would be ridiculous. Like, I think when any of these guys have popped, I've never been like, they totally tried to like beat the system, because nobody's beating this system. How many times do you see tweets from people who are like, they showed up at like my niece's birthday party and were like pissing this cup, like
Yeah.
the drug testing people don't give a shit. They will find you and they will make you pee in a cup. So it's hard for me to believe that anyone out there is like, I've got it figured out, because it seems like it's their career. It seems like too much to risk just to get that little edge. Now, obviously, people I'm sure are trying to take some sort of supplements to give themselves whatever edge you can take within the okay or agreed upon like list of stuff. And I think that people make that mistake more often, accidentally taking something. I think that's probably what happened here too.
And he, like I said, when I spoke to him in the interview, he said he had double pneumonia, right? So he was in the hospital. I don't think he made that up. And also after that, like I said,
Look up the records, hospital records.
Yeah, right. I had people reaching out to me about why I didn't ask him about steroids and stuff like that. And I had said, I had thought that he had spoke to that in his interview with Bosch, because things like this, I was not privy to, and most people weren't. I think it was just pure speculation that people were like, where's he been? He's really big right now. Could this be the thing? So like, going off of that, I'm never going to speak to speculation in that way. So for anyone that looks at like a past show and they're like, see, you were kind of white knighting for him and you were saying this, that, whatever. No, like we don't go off of like what people are speculating, because you can look at anyone and point a finger, which we'll obviously get to with this Starocci story, but like you can literally accuse somebody of anything. And it doesn't make it true, doesn't make it false. So for anyone, including myself, to ask Aaron Brooks about something that I didn't know to be true, wasn't going to do that, right? Robbie, your thoughts?
I think my biggest issue with it is that it's his second issue within the last, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one, not a big deal, very easily explained, didn't file his TUE, his therapeutic use exemption, not a big deal, easily remedied, not a problem, right? Legitimate prescription, cool. But the fact that after that experience, you're not hyper aware of everything that you're putting into your body, knowing that you're going to be tested significantly, that to me is concerning. It shows a lack of, I want to say a lack of judgment, because I don't know that it's a lack of judgment, a lack of forethought. Because this is your career, right? It's not like you're just doing this for fun. It's not, oh, I'm going to run a 10K this week. This is your career, and you have to be hyper aware of what you're doing for yourself and what position you're putting yourself in, because if this is a 2-year ban, that's 2 years of his prime competition years, and he's coming off an amazing performance at the Olympics, and he should be getting compensated for where he's at, and he's not going to have the opportunity to do that because he wasn't aware of what he was doing. It just seems I don't know, immature.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the right phraseology is here, right?
Yeah.
But it just doesn't seem like it's being taken seriously enough.
I think it's almost this happens in sports though all the time. Like baseball constantly. I feel like there's several guys a year that it's like, failed drug test, you're out or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like
like baseball, it's like you're out for 80 games because their season is so long. You're out for 80.
Right.
Right. And I think the demographic of people that listen to us remember the cream or the clear with
that was awesome
with Barry Bonds and those guys.
Baseball.
Like those are the kinds of things that happen in baseball that we were just used to. So it just kind of is what it is.
Well, my point with that is it does happen so infrequently with wrestling. I know we can name several names, right? But I think that again speaks to my point. Like there's 4 or 5 guys maybe that I can think of that like So I don't know. It sucks for him, and I'm sure he's not happy about it either. But he'll figure it out.
Yeah, the other angle of this, and I want Austin to kind of speak to this, and we talked about it before jumping on, is the people that feel vindicated for backing Meyer Shapiro and the allegations that he put out there. Because when he said what he said at NCAAs, everyone started pointing the finger at Penn State and saying that it was them. Austin, what do you make of people trying to say, point the "I told you so" and I was backing Meyer when he said it before, even though Aaron Brooks, pretty sure, wasn't on the team this past year, was not
Also
on the
didn't wrestle Meyer
roster.
Shapiro.
Yeah, like none of the so what do you make of those kinds of people trying to come out and again pound their chest and say that they're like vindicated and that see the "I told you so" kind of people?
Yeah, well, I think you briefly mentioned it before. This DHEA can be used as a masking agent,
Yeah.
so they're like, oh, well, there it is. That's why he's taking it. Well, that doesn't mean that's why he's taking that. That's just another effect that it could do, or another use it could do, right?
Yes.
So I think a lot of these people are looking at bits and pieces and trying to connect these dots that may not really be there, just to get their own confirmation bias in order. So I don't know. It's a weird situation too, because, and maybe it's just me, but I'm not going up. I never really did either go and get new supplements of, oh, a new different kind of protein. I'm going to take this one, and I mean, again, I was well aware of the NCAA testing rules that you mentioned before too, Holmes. It's like you have to get this stuff cleared. You think he would know better, it just seems odd to me, and maybe it's just me talking again, but that I would just go pick something up randomly off the shelf because I had double pneumonia. Like, oh, I'm going to try this, see if this works. Like he's not at some rinky-dink club. He's at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club.
Yeah.
There's a ton of science involved. There's a ton of technique, and there's a ton of people there he can rely on to say, hey, is this something I can take? And then boom, like all it does is it's a quick search someone can do.
Yeah, these guys
To
are
Robbie's point, I agree. It's immature, or just maybe a lack of a moment of stupidity, whatever you want to call it, just making a bad mistake.
Yeah, these, your support system is readily available. And like I don't want people thinking that we're trying to disregard anything that comes to Aaron Brooks in this case, right? We're not trying to say that he did it on purpose or that he did it on accident either way, right? I'm trying to say that if he did it unknowingly because what he took had something mixed, it had DHA mixed in it, that's a possible way that it could happen. However, you need to be hyper focused on what you are putting in your body because you are in the WADA testing pool. You've never been outside the NCAA testing pool. You are always going to be part of the WADA testing pool as an Olympian. As we saw Thomas Gilman find out, when you don't retire and you miss tests, you're still part of the testing pool. So you need to say either I'm retired or have some way of vouching so that you don't get suspended. But again, like I said, I'm not trying to defend him. I'm not trying to say that he's also guilty, right? I'm trying to wait for even more things to come out. And like I said, I spoke to the Brooks camp and it was like he didn't know. It wasn't something that he was doing deliberately. He wasn't trying to gain an edge because he wasn't even competing, and competing was not even on his radar at that point. Even when I talked to him, he still wasn't even back to practicing full, right? So it wasn't like he was trying to, it couldn't have been like he was trying to gain an edge. Unless, as people like to speculate, he was taking something and he was trying to mask it. But again, as Austin said, that confirmation bias is right there. I also don't think that people should try to point a finger and say, see, look, everyone at Penn State is doing it, when this is the first time that this has happened. And the only other time that somebody did fail a test, it was the same person. So like, and it was for a therapeutic use of a drug. So like the people that feel vindicated, you certainly shouldn't, because it was a vague statement by Meyer Shapiro. We still don't know who he was talking about. You can't give me concrete evidence to say who he was talking about unless he literally said to you, I was talking about Tyler Kasich, who I had just wrestled, right? So like, let's call a spade in that regard. There's other layers to this Penn State thing. Go ahead, though.
I
Kevin.
gotta say real quick, this is like the second time in a month that I just keep thinking of Frank Reynolds overlapping with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. He's a fan of the Ladies of the Night. And then also I was thinking of like if Aaron Brooks' doctor was Mantis Toboggan, his like made up character. And he's just got his wad of condoms. And I remember there was one point he hands out, I think it was to Charlie. He was handing Charlie something. And he was like, here you go, take this. And he takes it. And he's like, oh, wait, no, not that one. And it's like, maybe that's how Aaron,
Maybe that's how it went.
Yeah.
The Flintstones vitamins plus instead of just the Flintstones vitamins.
Yeah.
That's where you went wrong. Never go with the plus.
Everything's a plus. Let's move to this the Starocci Beau Bartlett angle of this. There's multiple layers in this Starocci thing. There's theft, there's rape, there's other sexual assault, there's taking naked pictures of teammates. There's a lot of layers in this entire thing. There was a police investigation of the theft, right? So
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, they say that there was. They have quotes from people who say that the investigation ended on such and such a date. Again, like I said, I did watch, and see what Flo had said, and the only thing that I don't necessarily agree with is Pyle saying he couldn't believe that the article was written. I can certainly believe that the article was written because you had multiple firsthand sources. Even though if they were anonymous, you had multiple firsthand sources. And whenever women, for the most part, come into anything and say that they were sexually assaulted, they're mostly 99.9% coming out anonymous.
Yeah, because these fucking assholes on the internet come out and say just horrible things
about them. So they're going to come out and be anonymous. So with multiple firsthand accounts from Beau and this other wrestler who is now renamed from Mark to Oliver in the article, and then the other females that were part of this, I can understand why the article was written. Now, journalistically, the article wasn't the best written article, but it's also a student journalist, I believe, that did it. But when they say that they have text messages and screenshots and spoke to the people that did the investigation, that looked into video evidence and stuff like that, you're like, okay, yes, like these could be credible people, right? This could be a credible thing. I don't think that Beau Bartlett is going to be lying about having his picture taken while he was naked and sent to him, or that something was stolen out of his locker, or anything else like that, right? So I don't want to think that he was lying, right? You want to believe people when they say that this, that, and the third happened, but you also have to remember that this is only one side of the story. The truth is always somewhere in the middle. So I'm not saying that anyone in this story that gave firsthand recounts of this is lying, but it's also what is Carter's recollection in this, as he's the one being accused, right? It is not guilty until proven innocent. It's innocent until proven guilty, right? So I'm not trying to roast Carter at the stake, as we saw a lot of people do so online. Now, reason being, right, is that they wanted to roast him online is because of how much talking he has done, as well as the picture and accusations that he put out against Ferrari, and with the split, with him doing a split over a dildo and saying that he was a pedo and everything else. So it's more so backlash from all those things happen, right? So I feel like all the people felt like, okay, well, this was projection on your side, right? So all of these things happen. When all this stuff came out, Kevin, what was your initial thought to the article, everything in it? We don't have to go kind of piece by piece, but the things in here they're not good. What was your thought on the article?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I can't speak to like the quality of it. I don't even know what what that is necessarily referring to. It seems like whoever wrote it did a decent job trying to collect sources and information and
Yes, that is correct.
put it together in a way that's like, hey, I am reporting on a thing that seems like it's scary to have around my campus, and there's enough separate collaboration pieces that make it seem pretty consistent. And I'm sure there's some sort of editor that goes in there too and makes sure that what they're going to put out there is not slanderous or whatever.
Right.
Maybe it's libel if it's written. So
Correct.
it's a piece that I'm glad exists, and I'm glad Beau put his name in it and was like, hey, this is my experience from it. Now, there's certainly going to be due process, and there's certainly going to be some form or fashion overseen where Carter is going to have an option to reply or respond, and hopefully does so in some way. The major thing that was a little scary for me, and I joked earlier about like, oh, the coaches didn't have a response ready, and then all this stuff happened. But like, this seems like something that you probably, and maybe they're not going to respond because neither of these guys are on the team anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But they're going to have to reply to somebody about it because I imagine it's not going to go away.
And even in the article said that Carter's not signed to Nittany Lion and was not going to be signed to Nittany Lion.
Mm-hmm. And neither is Beau for
Character
that matter.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah, and neither is Beau. I mean, Beau left. The one thing I will say is like cops not being able to get a hold of Carter, kind of crazy.
Stupid.
Kind of crazy for me. You knew where he was going to be every day. I don't think Carter was missing practices. I don't think he was like hiding in that regard, right? But
back at the scene of the crime,
right? Like I don't think he was trying to like hide from like in that regard. Like I feel like it was, if you couldn't get a hold of Carter Starocci, I feel like it was probably because of lazy cop
Lack
work.
of effort.
Yeah, like lazy cop work of just like get in the car, drive over there, like go do the job if you really need to get in contact with somebody. Or maybe it was the fact of like not wanting to do it, right? Like again, going to revert to things that other people are saying, Carter was probably given too much leeway, as Piles mentioned, right? I do agree in that regard of maybe winning cures all, and winning gives a lot of space, right?
When we
It
said
just
that
does.
when we saw hit, how much more, say personality, but how much more outspoken he was in interviews and how much more
Yeah.
egregious he was being with his online persona. Like you could see that he wasn't being reined in at all. And that was very clear. And we've spoken to that on multiple points. And that's what, a lot of frustration on my side. It really bothers me. I don't like when people act like that in general. Persona or not, it's annoying. But you could tell that he wasn't being reined in. You could tell that he was kind of had the run of the room and was getting away with things that other people weren't getting away with just through the way he was acting in public. So, what do we know that's going on behind the scenes if he's doing these things in public?
Exactly. Yeah. Austin, I want to bring you into the conversation of like, what were your thoughts on this and the whole, I don't even know, like there were so many layers to this. What were some of the ones that you tried to unpack first when you read this article, Austin?
Well, just to give you an idea what we're dealing with, I'm sure you guys saw it too. There were a few anonymous accounts saying that the allegations weren't real because the girls came out as anonymous.
Yeah.
So
not
it's
how
like,
this works.
yeah, that's, I mean, that I think that's a little bit of irony there. You're putting a statement out there where you're not even a real person. But
Yeah.
back to the article, it's when Beau was in there mentioning that he told the coaching staff and he told other people at the school and nothing happened. It's how much did the staff know? What did he tell them? And, how was that handled internally, if at all? It seems, I'm not sure if the article made it seem like things kept getting worse, and the theft was retaliation for Beau. And, it's a lot for Beau and even his wife to put their names out there on this. It's not, I mean, it's bad no matter who it is, but it's not a third, fourth string kid who didn't like Carter because he was picked on or bullied by Carter. This was a legit All-American multiple time All-American, almost NCAA champ in Beau Bartlett, putting his name out there for this. And, you know, you gotta, it goes along a little more, goes a little further, I think, than being anonymous, you know.
And he's standing on it too. Like
Yeah,
he's
coming
continuing
back
to put
and
things out and addressing things that are said. And I feel like he's handling it very well.
yeah,
He's very well spoken. He's speaking to directly to the allegations that he's making and to the things that are being said about him. And he's handling it more maturely than 99% of the people in the wrestling community.
yeah, it's rare to see someone get up and leave Penn State, you know, after being a 4-year starter, being successful there. If they're going to continue wrestling, they're most likely going to stay at Nittany Lion Club. You know, and for him to just get out of Dodge pretty quick there, just graduated, boom, left, you know, that I think that says something too. Usually people at least hang around there for a little bit to train.
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
and there were people also saying like, if this was going on, why did you stay at Penn State and all this? Like, one, like Beau went to Penn State for a number of reasons, right? Like educationally, it's good to get a Penn State degree. Let's call it what it is. It is. You're also in the #1 wrestling room. So even though there's some bullshit happening on one end, you're not going to allow that one level of bullshit to ruin your final year of a sport that you love, right? And you honestly shouldn't, especially when you feel like the coaches that recruited you to come there are going to hopefully protect you from that. And also, how do we know if it was and maybe I'm forgetting this from the article, but was it like past years that this had happened to him, or was this like this year, right? Like I don't remember.
sounded
that.
like it was this year.
Yeah, for me, it sounded like it was this year and not in past years, but I don't really know. But the other thing for me is the fact that everybody is going at Beau's wife, and I understand why people are like, well, she's the one that's out here talking this, that, whatever. And I'm reminded of it's a funny meme that I read before where it was like it was like two tweets that turned into a meme where a girl says, quiet guys or nice guys, why do you go for the loud girls? And the response was, well, somebody has to tell the waiter that we didn't order the fries or whatever else, right? Like that's what I'm reminded of in this regard. Beau is an introverted, young man, I should say, right? He's a very introverted guy. Him speaking out on things has been strategic. He spoke back out against Piles today because Piles made statements about him and his wife. So he addressed Christian Piles. He may have done it on a public forum, but he also responded to somebody who spoke about him on a public forum. So he did that. He did it this exact same way. He also went onto the forums initially on Intermat, I believe, and put that out, or maybe it was like one of the Penn State message boards, and put out his thoughts initially and spoke to it, which is what our initial thoughts were when we said it was a really vague statement. We didn't know what to make of it. So until more comes out, we can't call balls and strikes on it, which we hadn't until literally now. But then like the only other time that he has spoken out, I mean, I think there's been 3. There's one on the Penn State forum. The other one was in this article. And the third one was literally today when he addressed Piles. His wife has been the one that has been more vocal about it, but I believe that she's just standing up for her husband in that regard and their story.
And herself.
Because she is certainly part of it. She made a phone call, according to this article, to Starocci's girlfriend. So like, she is speaking up for her accounts in all of this stuff too. And I don't know about any of y'all, but like if somebody's doing wrong to me, my girl's going to speak up for me as well. Right. Like that's part of having a partner that has your back. So I feel that is all that she is doing for Beau, especially because Beau isn't that kind of guy. Beau is the happy, smiling, flipping dude that we see on the mat, not somebody that wants to be part of confrontation, right? And if you know his family is the same way. His dad is the same way. His dad will let you know, like, that's not how things are going to go down. But every time I talk to Beau's dad, it's the same way when I talk to Beau, right? There's always smiles, there's jokes, there's hugs and hand pounds, right? Like, it's just how it is. So for anyone that wants to say, oh, she's bringing it on herself, no, like she's defending herself as most people would do in this situation. And 2, she's defending her husband. So I don't fault her in that regard, like whatsoever. But like I said, I think the article had multiple sources. I think it pointed to the different allegations and it had people that spoke their firsthand knowledge of all of these things. So it gave that credibility. I think that the reference in the end about Yik Yak or about like whatever group on there, I feel like that was thrown in kind of carelessly. I don't think that there was like a lot. I think it could have been done better, but also like I've been kind of doing this for a very long time. So I think I would probably know how to tie that into a story better if it was relevant at all. But I can see why the story was written. You had multiple firsthand sources. You spoke to the investigators. You didn't have to, in my regard, in my thought, you didn't have to provide the police report because you had the people that spoke to the report. You also could have provided it to back that up, but you had the firsthand accounts to have people speak to it, which is literally 101 for me. But I think that there's still a lot more that is going to come out. And to say that everything in this story is true and the people in it aren't lying or this or that, like, we're not calling anybody liars. We're not saying Carter is guilty. We're not even saying that the coaches did what Beau said or didn't do what Beau said, right? I mean, what did Kale and the coaches know, and what did they do in trying to rein this in? We don't know. We only have one side of it, right? So again, we're not trying to pick sides of any of this, but the initial reports of this don't look good, obviously, for the people being accused, which they never do. But there are multiple accounts from different people that are stringing bad things together about specifically one person in this regard. And it's going to be interesting to see what else comes out. If Carter makes a statement, if Penn State makes a statement, because they are certainly tied to this of having things reported to them and how they handled it or didn't handle it or what went into the investigation. So there's still a lot more that we have to find out and figure out. But gentlemen, any other thoughts on any of these topics with Penn State? If you want to speak to handling from coaches or Beau's response to Piles or the Aaron Brooks stuff or the Carter stuff, like anything else that you guys want to speak to. Robbie, I'll give you first go at it.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, sexual assault is a huge issue, especially on college campuses.
Yes.
It's a weird place with a lot of interesting power dynamics. And when you throw in a high level and famous athlete, that compounds things even more. When you throw in the allegations that it's underage girls or 16, 17, 18-year-old girls, there's also another power dynamic there that's going to make it more difficult for them to feel comfortable speaking out.
And also teammates.
Yeah, and teammates. I'm going to speak to this part first, then I'll speak to the teammate and culture aspect. This is a subject that have very strong feelings about. When I was in school, one of my really close friends got raped the first week we were there, and it changed my outlook on a lot of things. Also led to me drop kicking a guy off a porch and beating the shit out of him because he did it. But that was another issue. Allegedly I did that. Allegedly. So we know it's an issue. I'm not connected to the Penn State program in any way. And I've heard rumors and whispers about this for the last 3 years. So to say I was surprised, I'm not. I'm not surprised that these things are coming out. I know that there's more because I've heard more. So I won't be surprised when more things come to light. That being said, I can't speak to his guilt or his innocence. All I can speak to is what I've heard. But what I want to do is I want to commend those young women who have come out. I want to commend Beau for speaking up for himself. I want to commend him for speaking up for his wife. I want to commend her for speaking up for both of them and for the other people involved, because it's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you have all this other things working against you. And then when you look at the other aspects of the, possibly assaulting teammates and taking naked pictures of them, that to me speaks to a very big culture problem. I mean, we've all been in enough locker rooms to know that a lot of random weird shit happens there, and it's not out of sorts for things to be awkward. But I know that if my teammates were taking naked pictures of me and sending them around, that would have been a very big problem, and it would have been dealt with very quickly. So the fact that that was just happening and a joke and comfortable, that to me is it speaks to a much bigger issue if that actually was happening.
Yeah. Kevin?
Yeah. I was thinking about how Carter came out to the music from Halloween for his like walkout music, and that seems scarier now,
I was
No.
gonna say the same thing, man. That's weird.
Like, he's Mike Myers. He had a 5th year. He's still not gone, and now we're still talking about him.
He's still chasing
He
us.
just never goes. Is this Halloween H2O? No, I don't know, man. It's scary stuff. The culture thing, I think that Robbie talked about is spot on. Like, and I'm sure if whatever coaching staff, if the coach is there or whoever, like, assuming it is as Beau alleged it was, right? That sucks. That's not what you want to be around, and I'm sure that's not the case. I hope that I don't know. I don't want to belabor the point. It's scary. I hope whatever justice looks like in the right world, that we get there at some point here soon.
Agreed. Austin?
Yeah, I mean, the article did mention a bunch of different topics, when it comes to the assault, the theft, and, just straight, I guess, bullying, and, it goes beyond that, it does speak to something that it's ugly. It looks really ugly. And it took Beau Bartlett to kind of speak up on it for it to become a thing after all these years, if it were happening over years. And Bartlett finally comes up and uses his huge platform. His wife, who I think has a lot of TikTok followers, I want to say close to 1 million, something like that, to use her huge platform. It speaks volumes that, it took something like that for this to get out. And if that's the case, that's also not good, right? Because it wasn't just Bartlett who knew this stuff. I'm sure other people knew, and then to not come forward with it, like you guys are saying, is it a culture problem? It kind of seems that way if these allegations are true.
Yeah. I did think of one other point I wanted to add in there. Let's look positive note, right? I'll go positive first. I hope that maybe all of these things happening at once, like, the incidences with the Lehigh Wrestling Club, all this stuff with the culture stuff. I hope this is like a look at yourself in the mirror coaching staff, like rehaul, and they get an opportunity to be like, where did we let this go? Where did it get too far away? Who do our leaders need to be? And that they can right the ship, right?
Yeah.
Even for anybody who's out there and is like, oh, down with the dynasty or whatever, it's like, I don't know. I think the spirit of competition, like, you'd rather just beat them at their best rather than just have this culture thing completely rip them apart. Now, that happens sometimes with good teams, that's why it's very hard for anybody to do this. But, I think that hopefully they can get that culture piece figured out. The other thing,
go ahead.
Just to finish this thought, we hadn't talked about it here at all. I haven't even watched it yet, but for all of this to come out right now on the heels of the HBO Ohio State doc too, like, this is a bad look. We got to get in front of this. Like, can we all just not be shitty people? And like, we need more positive stuff in the news. So let's get back to doing that. I thought we did a lot of that for a while.
Yeah, that is probably definitely a topic for another day. I think the thing for me with all this, right, and we've talked about the multiple layers of what's happening with Penn State, but the wrestling portion of it is what people are trying to tie to this, right? And saying, is this what crumbles the dynasty? And it's like, no, it's not. And mostly because of the incredible firepower that they have coming back into their lineup, and then the recruits that they have, right? Like, this isn't going to be the thing that takes the crown off of Penn State. It's not. Sorry for people
It could
that
definitely put some chips in it, though.
yeah,
'Cause, I
but
mean, we definitely
it's
have recruits looking at things differently.
it can it certainly can it can have recruits thinking maybe that's not the best room for me, right? Maybe the culture isn't what I thought it was, for sure, right? But I also feel like the recruits they have coming in, the Blaze, the PJ Duke, like those guys on top of all the other guys that are already there, like it's going to be really hard to continue to beat them.
Mhm.
It really is. So, like, from a wrestling standpoint, people that are hoping that the dynasty falls and whatever else, like, you, what do they say about wishes? You should hope in one hand and shit in the other, and see which one fills up first.
Yep.
Keep doing that, because that's the way that it works, right? And maybe I said that wrong. Maybe it's whatever, but
No.
the gist of it is there, right? Like you guys are hoping for something to happen that's probably not going to happen for a little bit, unless the only thing I can see that disbands this is if they do an investigation, they see that it was reported to the coaching staff and it wasn't elevated and nothing was done about it, and they say we can't have this because, as we've said, there have been very high profile things that have happened in Penn State locker rooms that they don't want to have a 2.0 of, that they say we're not going to allow this to spiral into something bigger and want to replace people. I don't see that happening. I hope that they do an investigation into all of it. I hope we get the truth for everyone, right? I hope there is justice, whatever that looks like. But I also think that people that are hoping and wishing that this is what propels Oklahoma State and David Taylor to the top, or allows a Nebraska to bust through and pick up another trophy, or whoever was at the top. I don't see that happening. I just don't. Any other thoughts, gentlemen?
And none of this made Levi Haynes bad at wrestling all of a sudden.
Not for 1 second. Let's move to another Big Ten power, and that is the news that came out today of Gabe Arnold no longer being at Iowa, and the news tied to it. And I had gotten something that he was being told to come back to Iowa, and the news was also shared in our group. I thought he was home in Georgia. It came out that he was on vacation, I believe, in Florida. And he was being
Nothing good
told
happens in Florida.
no, nothing that happens in Vegas either. But he was told to come back and didn't, and defied whatever else. And his locker was then cleaned out and he was taken off the team, right? Like, that's the story, the behind the scenes story, I guess, that people are talking about. I think the flip side of this is he just gave them a reason to get rid of him. I feel like if you're looking for a reason, you'll easily find one. Because I think right now it's camp season. Guys are all over the place right now. They're really not at their respective schools and in their respective rooms. A lot of guys are all over doing camps and things like that. Unless they're training to wrestle at Worlds, they're somewhere doing a camp. So I feel like he gave them a reason, right? They have viable guys in the lineup at 74 and 84 that a Gabe Arnold is, let's face it, it's extra now for them. And they're like, well, we can use this as a way. That's what that was a thought for me, right? And that's a thought I had in a conversation, another group that I had, of just like, they're like, you gave him a reason. And if you give a guy a reason, if you give somebody a reason to make a decision on your behalf, they're going to do that. What did you guys make of the news? Austin, what were your thoughts of the Gabe Arnold news out of Iowa?
Yeah, I think it was one of you guys brought that up a few days ago, saying, hey, is this stuff with Gabe Arnold true? I didn't know anything about it. And then, looking back at what what Willie was saying and some of these other things, it seems like there was a few different issues going on simultaneously that kind of maybe this is a straw that broke the camel's back with Gabe Arnold. But
There was also that post where somebody this maybe a month ago, or somebody else had said that Gabe Arnold needs to get his shit together or something like that. I
Yeah.
remember that
It's
post,
one of
and
their
I was
big
like,
donors said it.
yeah,
Yeah, and that was on a forum.
It was on a forum, and I was
It's
like,
a big donor. I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure he has some insight of what's going on in that program. He donated
his name's on the
hundreds of dollars
wall.
to it. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what's involved. I don't know if it's grades, extracurriculars, and other stuff going on. I'm sure maybe it's a little bit of both. I'm not sure, but it's when there's a ton of stuff going on, and you just do something else that just keeps these coaches unhappy, and you give them reason. I think it's might be legit in their case. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Robbie, your thoughts?
That's kind of what it felt like to me. It was just an excuse or a reason to clear some roster space and probably some realistically cap space if we're if we're being honest.
He's a cap hit now.
Yeah, but I mean, Gabe had some struggles last year. Probably didn't perform up to what he was expecting and what the team was expecting of him. He has a ton of potential, and I don't know how it's going to work for him to land somewhere else, just because it's a weird situation with the portal being closed and him. I mean, I guess he can unenroll and enroll somewhere else, and I don't know. There's ways around things. We've seen
The
that.
portal's a formality, people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if people have realized it, but the portal is just there so that coaches know that you're essentially open for business. As we saw last year with, what was it, Glazier, that you can literally unenroll from one school and enroll in another. The portal is a formality.
He can move to Mount Pleasant, Michigan tomorrow.
Fire up chips.
Yeah. Just saying.
We'll see. I mean, it sounds like there's a good recruiting pitch right there. That sounded pretty strong. Kev.
It's a great spot to be.
Ken, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, it kind of stinks because I'm gonna so fondly remember those 5 matches he had as a freshman, or however many 4 matches they threw.
He was
him
a
out
hero
there.
as a freshman.
Dude, that Iowa State duel, they don't win that without him. He goes out there and bumps up to 184, beats was it Feldkamp,
Yep.
who was a returning All-American. He had some awesome matches in that freshman year where it was like, this is gonna be so awesome. And then, it was like you watch the trailer to the movie and then you go see the movie and you're like, it was fine.
Yeah,
It's kind of like what this season was. And then they're like, but look at this other shiny toy we have. This is this Ferrari here. It's going to go so fast. And then he had his own little freshman, moments beating Plot and having some big wins himself. So I don't know. I think that's one of the things that's really going to bother me is I felt like he did a lot and was very impressive. Now, again, I can't speak to off the mat stuff because that's not, what we're doing here. But I can say it's got to be really tough when you come in there. You've got all these expectations. You finally get your chance in the lineup. Turns out the Big Ten at 184 really hard. All right? It's and it's so week after week after week you're wrestling somebody who's ready to take your head off, and that paired with maybe some of the pressure of having Ferrari on your heels, and I don't know. It's just tough, man. I think a change of scenery will be good for him wherever that ends up being. He'll be fine. He'll bounce back.
Hey, Robbie, is there still an opening at 174 and 184 at some school in the ACC?
Yeah, kind of. Well, yes and no. It filled with Chattanooga kid, DeSante. So you can wiggle around a little bit. Definitely need some help mid lineup in one of those schools in North Carolina that could use.
Yeah, I did see a picture of Gabe Arnold from doing a camp this summer. Man looks kind of thick right now. He's always been a thick boy, but he's looking a little extra thick right now.
Camera adds 10 pounds, Holmes. Remember that.
Yeah, it does. I'm actually 175 pounds to be completely honest, but like, he's looking kind of big right now. So we'll see if 84 is he would be a very short 97. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, you would.
That'd be kind of tough.
He's no
Um,
Duran Win.
there's only one of those. There's only one of those.
Like a fire hydrant.
He really is. He really is. Um, let's end with some coaching news. And today it was announced, or I should say yesterday, because this is going to be out on Tuesday morning. Yesterday, Lehigh announced that Sammy Sasso is returning to Lehigh Valley. As we were signing on here, Sasso got back to me about doing an interview, so look out for that. I'm going to try and get that scheduled. Um, I think it's awesome to see him back in the Lehigh Valley. Austin, this is obviously your territory in EIWA. So, what are some of the notes and things that you got around the Sammy Sasso to Lehigh hire?
Yeah, well, I was making some phone calls before this we hopped on here. I kind of forgot, and it wasn't really highlighted much that Evan Henderson was on staff there and then left. So Sammy Sasso is replacing Henderson in that spot there. Not competing for the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club, just focusing on coaching. I know the coaches are excited that he's going to be a big pull, especially that local talent that kind of grew up watching Sammy, not just in Lehigh Valley, but across the state and, nationwide. Sammy Sasso is a big name, and having him as a workout partner in those middleweights is going to be huge as well in the room. He's just an all-around good guy. I mean, sure, you guys have a lot of experience with him. Totally down to earth, awesome dude, nice as can be, and just having him back home where he's kind of a legend already. I think it's gonna be perfect fit
Yeah.
for Lehigh.
Yeah, if Ryan Crookham starts sitting to a cradle, you're all in trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts too. It's good to have Sammy back home. I actually was able to, I think I've said this before, I was able to interview Sammy for his first ever interview back when I was working for the newspaper, and he beat Justin Mejia at Flow Nationals, and I called his house phone and spoke to his mom, and I think it was his mom that paid the phone, and spoke to them, and then Sammy did the interview from the house phone in the kitchen. So it's back before the young man had a cell phone and was just on the come up back then. So, but no, it's great. One, it's great to see him, recovered, even if he can't compete. Great to see him recover, but it's also great to see him back in the Lehigh Valley and being able to give back to the town that helped him grow and get to where he is. Kevin, your thoughts on Sasso to Lehigh?
I mean, it's huge. I'm really pumped for him. I'm sure they would have loved to have kept him at Ohio State too, and obviously he's talked many times about how great that community was to him, going through everything that he went through and coming back from the injury and trying to compete one last year. But that's one of the problems when you have a really successful program like Ohio State and you just load up with former wrestlers on your staff. There's not always new openings, right? So this seems like a perfect spot for him. I'm very excited. Technically, he was always so wildly good and dangerous, and I'm sure part of that with anybody who wrestles to a certain extent or to a certain level, like its feel and its hips and everything. But I still think whatever he'll translate to a coach really effectively. So it's going to be fun to watch what they do there in Lehigh. That
Yeah.
plus the women's program plus everything else, like it's all coming up Lehigh.
Big fan. Big fan. That Lehigh Valley, it bred some real good guys. I tell you that right now. Robbie, bring it home on last word on Sasso to Lehigh, and then what are you hearing on the Northern Colorado position as well?
I love the addition of Sammy. I've been super impressed with him every time I've had the chance to talk to him. Real down to earth kid. Technically, just a phenomenal wrestler, and he's going to add another dynamic to an already really dangerous team. Heard a few different things, Northern Colorado wise. The latest leaning I'm hearing is an ACC wrestler heading that direction. Maybe taking another one with him. I'm not gonna jump on anybody's announcement, but from what I'm hearing, somebody from ACC country is heading out west.
Yeah, and the other news that came out, I mean, from the ACC was that Tony Ramos had turned down that job, and I
Mhm.
had reached out to Tony, I believe it was the day he turned it down. He gave me kind of a cryptic answer of one of those confirm nor deny type things, where I think he was, and it's for a guy like Tony, who has wanted to be a head coach for a while, and I feel like he obviously deserves it. This had to be very tough for him to give up. With and we had mentioned it before, where we said like Tony would be perfect to be in the mix, but like from a family standpoint, it just didn't make sense, right? Taking your family all the way to Colorado, uprooting everyone, it just didn't make sense in from that regard. But Tony Ramos as a head coach certainly does. So at some point, I'm hopeful that he gets his opportunity to be a head coach. I wish that um, the situation at Campbell was in better shape, so that I think he would probably consider that one for sure, because it is still in North Carolina. Wouldn't really have to make much of a move and a change, right? Um, but yeah, I was able to speak to Tony that day, and then Willie had put it out, I think like the next day or so, that he had turned it down, which was again a little unsurprised, not too surprising, just based off of that aspect of it. But in the coming days, I'm hopeful that we'll see whether the news that we're getting behind the scenes is correct, and what it is. Um, but there's definitely a lot of good that can happen in Northern Colorado. We saw what Troy Nickerson was able to do at Northern Colorado, and how he was able to build there. And it can certainly, the momentum can continue, and it can certainly be done. So I hope that it does. The last thing is, speaking of Troy Nickerson, Austin, I know you have a little bit of Troy Nickerson news that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'll be interviewing him midweek this week. Just catching up with him, talking about Northern Colorado. Obviously the new job at Army. That's going to be coming out around July 4th. So try and throw in a patriotic question or two there, just to make it festive, for the nice holiday coming up. So yeah,
Kevin's making it festive for all of us right now with his USA banner behind him.
That's right. That's right, baby. My kids were watching Hunger Games in the basement on the projection screen we got from the library. So posted up out here today. Not a
There
bad
you
spot.
go. There you go. Gentlemen, that is the show. There has been, as I said, a lot. There's been a lot for us to talk about this off season, more than
Sweet. There's
expected.
more coming. Don't worry.
And there's more coming too. Like, to the people listening, we have wanted to talk about the new rules for like 3 weeks, and every time we have it on our agenda in the doc, we kick it to the next week because three more friggin' headlines pop up that we need to get to and speak to in a timely manner, instead of getting to the rules. But I promise we'll get to them at some point. We'll dissect these things. We'll talk about them. Gentlemen, any final words, any shout outs or anything that you want to make before we close out today?
It's
Nothing.
the dog days of summer, man. Oh, and I got Willie Miklas coming up as well, moving to North Dakota State. So
There you
that'll be
go.
another week or so, maybe.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. So we're going to keep kicking it with the content. Stick with us, people. We appreciate everybody watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify. You should be able to watch this today on Spotify, as well as we switch platforms with our host on the audio portion, as well as listening on Apple. I apologize for last week. The platform that I upload everything to was giving me, I guess, some little bit of issues. So the Apple portion of things didn't get to where it was supposed to as quick as it was supposed to. But that's all fixed. We made some switches, we made some moves, and we appreciate people that reached out and said, "Hey, where the hell's the episode?" That means a lot to us, honestly. That you guys watch, that you guys listen, that you guys support. Throw those comments in there. So yeah, throw in those questions as well. If there is something that you want us to speak to, You can comment on literally every platform. We will get to it. We'll answer your questions, whether we answer them in the comments or right here on the show. We will certainly get to them. So we appreciate it, as well as all the other support. Shout out also to our sponsors, to Poseidon Strength. Quad Pod is the discount over there, as well as our sponsor, Adidas Wrestling. Use QP25 to get your discount over there on adidaswrestling.com. We appreciate our sponsors. We appreciate you watching and listening, and we'll see you again next time. Peace.